We've all heard that myth about success, right? The lone genius, the self-made person pulling themselves up by their bootstraps. It's a great story. But what if the real story, how people actually get to the top, is, well, stranger,
Hmm.
and maybe less about just individual brilliance than we think?
It's definitely more than just simplifying things. It's a story that often just misses the huge impact of forces way beyond our control. We tend to look at successful people and think, wow, they must be special, totally self-made. But the truth, as we'll dig into today, it reveals something much more complex. And
Right.
honestly, much more surprising.
Absolutely. And that's our mission for this deep dive, to kind of pull back the curtain on that hidden story. We've gathered some really fascinating research, surprising facts, compelling case studies. We want to explore how things way beyond just individual merit stuff like your family, where you were born, even your birthday, and these deep cultural legacies, how they shape who makes it and why. By the end, hopefully, you'll see the world's successful people, well, through a totally new lens.
Yeah, and to really see this, let's start somewhere maybe a bit unexpected. Canadian junior hockey.
Okay, hockey. That feels like a bit of a curveball for a success discussion, but all right, I'm intrigued. So picture the Memorial Cup, right? Top junior league championship. Future stars, 17, 18, 19 years old, peak of the pyramid. You'd think the teams would be a fair mix of talent, born throughout the year. But here's the kicker. A huge number of these elite players are born in January, February, March. Why is that?
Well, what's really interesting is it's got nothing to do with astrology or anything magical about winter babies. It's just the eligibility cutoff date for age class hockey in Canada. It's January 1st. So a kid turning 10 on January 2nd. He might be playing with someone who won't turn 10 until like late December. And at that age, pre-adolescence, a whole year, that's a massive difference in physical maturity. The older kids are just playing bigger, stronger, more coordinated.
And the knock-on effect of that tiny, almost random difference, it's huge. Because they're a bit older, a bit more developed, they're the ones more likely to get picked for the all-star teams, the rep teams, at 9 or 10. And those teams,
Yeah.
they get the better coaching, way more ice time, more games.
Exactly. That initial, almost accidental edge, it just snowballs. Sociologists call it a cumulative advantage.
Right.
It's like getting that first little leg up sets you on a path, and then everything else kind of reinforces it. The early advantage sticks, it grows, it becomes,
Mm.
a self-fulfilling prophecy.
A self-fulfilling prophecy.
Right.
And this isn't just hockey, is it? The Matthew effect, as they call it.
No, not at all. You see the same thing, connect this to the bigger picture. You see it in European soccer, different cutoff dates, but same skewed birth months on the elite teams. And maybe more importantly, these biases show up where it really counts, like in schools, the youngest kids in a grade, they often struggle to catch up with their slightly older classmates. It can lock them into these patterns, achievement or underachievement that last for years.
Wow. That's kind of unsettling. So, okay, if these early random advantages matter so much, what about the actual work?
Being exceptional.
That brings us to the 10,000-hour rule. That study by K. Anders Ericsson on violinists in Berlin. Really fascinating stuff.
Oh, absolutely. He looked at these elite violin students, split them into stars, good players, and future music teachers. And he asked them all about practice hours. And the striking thing, they couldn't find any naturals, people who just floated to the top without much practice. And they didn't find grinds either, people who worked super hard but just didn't have the talent. Basically, once you were good enough to get into that top school, the only thing separating the best from the rest was how much harder they worked.
Much, much harder, right?
Way harder. They racked up around 10,000 hours of deliberate practice to get to that world-class level. The real eye-opener isn't just that practice is key, but that access to all that practice time. That's the real differentiator.
10,000 hours, though. That sounds... I mean, how does anyone even manage that by their early 20s? Especially for something like violin or coding.
Well, that's the thing. It's almost impossible to hit that number on your own by then. You need extraordinary opportunities, support. It's not just about talent. It's having the resources, the coaching, and just the sheer time needed for that really focused practice.
And you see this pattern again and again in famous success stories, don't you? Like Bill Joy, co-founder of Sun Microsystems.
Exactly. The Edison of the internet, they called him. Wasn't even that into computers in high school. But then he lands at the University of Michigan in '71. And just by pure luck, it's one of the few places on Earth with these advanced time-sharing computer systems. Unlimited programming time.
Unlimited time. Why?
Like basically lived in the computer lab, just coded nonstop for years, hit his 10,000 hours easily.
Or the Beatles. We think of them bursting onto the scene, but before America in '64, they had their Hamburg grind.
At Hamburgers, well, yeah. Between 1960 and 62, they played something like 270 nights, often 8 hours a night, 7 days a week. By the time they had Ed Sullivan, they'd probably performed live 1,200 times.
1,200 times. That's insane. Most bands don't do that in a whole career.
Right. That intense practice just transformed them, honed their skills like nothing else could.
And then there's Bill Gates. His story, when you break it down, is just one lucky break after another.
It really is an incredible series of events. Lakeside School in 68, access to that rare teletype hooked up to a mainframe, super unusual.
And then free computer time from C-Cubed. Sneaking into the University of Washington labs from 3 to 6 a.m.
I mean, think about it. By the time he dropped out of Harvard, he was already way past 10,000 hours, as he put it. He figured maybe, 50 teenagers in the world had that kind of programming experience then?
Just 50. Wow.
So these aren't just stories about raw talent, you see. They're about these incredible opportunities showing up at exactly the right moment. It's striking, isn't it, how many software pioneers' jobs, Eric Schmidt at Google, the Sun founders like Joy, were born around 1954, 1955.
Yeah, just the right age.
Perfectly positioned to come of age right when the personal computer revolution hit in the mid-70s. Their thousands of hours suddenly became incredibly valuable. Their timing was just perfect.
It really flips the script on being self-made, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, so if it's not just the hours, an opportunity is massive. Let's talk about intelligence. What kind really matters? We hear about guys like Christopher Langan, right? The smartest man in America, IQ off the charts. He's often the poster child for genius.
Right, and our first reaction is usually awe. But here's where it gets really interesting. Research shows IQ seems to have a threshold, around, say, 120.
A threshold, what do you mean?
Well, beyond that point, having an even higher IQ doesn't seem to give you a measurable boost in real-world success. Look at Nobel Prize winners in science. They went to good schools, sure, but not always, the absolute top Ivy League places. You just need to be smart enough.
That's enough. Okay.
It's kind of like height in basketball. You got to be tall enough to play in the NBA, obviously, but being 6'8" instead of 6'6" doesn't automatically make you better. Michael Jordan was 6'6", right? Not the tallest, but maybe the greatest.
Good analogy. So it's not about being the absolute smartest, just smart enough to make use of the opportunities.
Pretty much. Which leads to the question, if analytical IQ isn't everything, what is that extra ingredient?
Okay, what is it?
It seems to be what psychologists call practical intelligence.
Practical intelligence.
Yeah.
Like street smarts.
Kind of, yeah. It's knowing what to say, who to say it to, when to say it, how to say it to get what you want. It's procedural knowledge. Like, you know how to ride a bike. You don't need to explain the physics. It's knowing how to navigate the world, read situations, persuade people.
That makes a lot of sense. So how does that play out with Langan versus, say, someone like Robert Oppenheimer, the Manhattan Project guy?
It's a stark contrast. Langan, for all his brain power, really struggled with institutions. Lost a scholarship because his mom missed a deadline. Couldn't talk a professor into changing a class time when his car broke down. Simple stuff, but he couldn't navigate it. Oppenheimer, brilliant physicist, obviously, but also incredibly savvy. He actually tried to poison his tutor at Cambridge, a bizarre story. But later, he completely charmed General Leslie Groves, this really demanding military guy, into making him the scientific head of the most critical project of the century.
Wow. From poisoning a tutor to leading the Manhattan Project, that's some range.
Exactly. Oppenheimer had both. High analytical and high practical intelligence. He knew how to make the world work for him.
And this ties into parenting, doesn't it? That research by Annette Leroux, concerted cultivation versus natural growth.
Yes, precisely. Leroux found middle-class parents often practice concerted cultivation. They schedule activities, they reason with their kids, they teach them how to talk to adults, how to assert themselves, negotiate.
Like that kid Alex Williams she studied, the 9-year-old questioning his doctor.
Exactly, that's entitlement in the positive sense. Leroux means it feeling like you have the right to engage, to ask questions, to customize your environment.
Whereas working-class parents, she found, often favor natural growth. Kids have more independence, maybe, but they can end up more intimidated by authority, less equipped to advocate for themselves in, say, a school or a doctor's office.
Right, and if you connect that back, Langan's struggles, despite that incredible mind, kind of highlight this. He lacked that cultivated practical intelligence, that ease with institutions that could have helped him leverage his genius. His intellect alone wasn't enough.
It really shows how much upbringing shapes our ability to use whatever talents we have. Okay, let's shift again. Deeper still. History. Cultural legacies, these unexpected gifts. We love the rags to riches story. Joe Flom, son of poor Jewish garment workers, becomes this legal powerhouse.
Yeah.
But you're saying his success wasn't despite his background, but somehow because of it.
It's paradoxical, isn't it? But yeah, back in the 40s and 50s, the big established white shoe law firms on Wall Street, they were notoriously discriminatory. Didn't hire Jewish lawyers, or Catholics for that matter. So lawyers like Flom, often from immigrant backgrounds, had to start their own firms like Skadden, Arps, and they got pushed into the legal work the white shoe firms looked down on.
Like what kind of work?
Things like litigation and especially proxy fights, the legal battles involved in hostile takeovers. That was considered grubby work back then.
Okay, so they took the leftovers.
Exactly. But then, fast forward a couple of decades, the corporate world changes dramatically. Hostile takeovers become huge business, central to Wall Street. And suddenly, who has all the expertise in this now crucial, complex area? Joe Flom and firms like his. They'd spent years honing skills nobody else wanted. What began as a disadvantage turned into this incredible edge.
Wow, so the discrimination actually created their niche. That's amazing.
And there was another layer of luck for his generation. Demographics.
Demographics, how so?
Flom and others like him were born in the early 1930s. Right in the depths of the Great Depression, birth rates plummeted during those years.
The demographic trough. Fewer babies born.
Right, which meant when Flom's generation reached school age and then college and then the job market, they faced way less competition than the generations before or after. Smaller class sizes, easier to get into good schools, more job opportunities. Even for kids from humble backgrounds, like another top lawyer, Ted Friedman, the path was just less crowded. It's this hidden advantage of history.
It's incredible how these big unseen forces shape individual lives. And what are their cultural roots? You mentioned the garment industry.
Yes, this is huge. Many Jewish immigrants arriving in New York, like Louis and Regina Borgenick, who started making aprons, came with skills in sewing and tailoring. And they arrived when the garment trade was the major industry in New York. Huge, entrepreneurial, you could start small, work for yourself.
So it wasn't just any job.
No, it offered what we'd call meaningful work, autonomy being your own boss, complexity figuring out designs, materials, markets, and a clear link between effort and reward, work harder, make more money. This wasn't just about survival. It built skills, resilience, and an economic base. And that foundation allowed them to push their children towards professional careers. Doctors, lawyers.
So the saying goes.
Jewish doctors and lawyers did not become professionals in spite of their humble origins. They became professionals because of their humble origins. That background in meaningful entrepreneurial work was the key.
That really reframes the whole immigrant success narrative. But culture runs even deeper, right? Affecting behavior patterns over centuries, like in Harlan County, Kentucky, those violent family feuds.
Exactly. The Howards versus the Turners, infamous stuff. It wasn't just random violence. It followed distinct patterns. These patterns trace back to a culture of honor brought over by settlers from the British borderlands, the Scotch-Irish.
Culture of honor, what does that mean?
It's a world where your reputation, especially for toughness and willingness to respond to insult, is paramount. Your manhood, your family standing depends on it. In a rough, lawless environment like the Appalachian frontier, that kind of fierce self-reliance and defensive honor was maybe necessary for survival, and it got passed down generation after generation. Social inheritance, they call it.
Wow. Passed down like an heirloom. And it still shows up. That Michigan experiment.
Yeah, the insult experiment. Psychologists deliberately bumped into college students and muttered an insult. The guys from the northern states mostly shrugged it off, maybe amused. The guys from the south, their cortisol and testosterone levels spiked. They got angry. They felt their status was challenged.
Centuries later, that cultural pattern is still active.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Now, take that idea of deep cultural patterns and apply it somewhere really high stakes, aviation safety.
Okay.
For a period, Korean Air had a truly terrible safety record. Way more crashes than comparable airlines. Why?
That's terrifying, what was going on.
A lot of analysis pointed towards culture, specifically what Geert Hofstede called power distance.
Power distance.
It's about how much a culture accepts and expects inequality and hierarchy. In high-power distance cultures, like Korea traditionally, subordinates are very deferential to authority. You don't question the boss. In the cockpit, this meant first officers were often incredibly reluctant to speak up directly, to challenge the captain, even if they saw a serious problem.
Even if the plane was in danger.
Yes. It led to what's called mitigated speech. Instead of saying, "Captain, we're too low," they might hint, "Captain, the weather radar." Or to stay
On a
silent.
well, like the Avianca crash near New York.
Yeah.
Flight 052.
Exactly. They were running out of fuel. The first officer kept hinting about it, using phrases like priority, but never used the word emergency or clearly stated the dire situation. The American air traffic controllers, coming from a lower power distance culture where you expect directness, just didn't grasp the severity until it was too late. The communication gap, rooted in culture, was fatal.
That's chilling. So how did Korean Air fix it?
They brought in an outsider, David Greenberg from Delta. He did something radical. He basically mandated English as the language of the cockpit.
English. Why English?
Because for the Korean pilots, English didn't carry the same cultural baggage of deference and hierarchy as Korean did. It kind of leveled the playing field linguistically. Plus, they implemented intensive communication training, focusing on direct, unambiguous language regardless of rank. Assertiveness training, essentially.
And it worked.
Dramatically. Their safety record transformed. It's a powerful lesson. Cultural legacies are incredibly strong, but they aren't destiny. You can address them, change communication norms, and improve outcomes.
That's actually helpful. Okay, one last piece of this puzzle. Math ability. Why do kids from Asian cultures often outperform others in math? It's not just some innate thing, right?
Absolutely not innate. There are a couple of really interesting cultural factors. First, language itself.
The language.
Yeah. Think about how we count in English. 11, 12, then 13, 14, then 20, 30. It's irregular, kind of illogical. But in many Asian languages, Chinese, Japanese, Korean, Sabrit, the number system is perfectly logical and transparent. 11 is 10-1, 12 is 10-2, 24 is 2 tens 4.
So it makes mathematical sense right from the start.
Exactly. It makes counting faster, basic addition and subtraction easier to grasp conceptually. It builds a sense that math makes sense rather than being a set of arbitrary rules you just have to memorize. That's a huge head start.
That's fascinating. I never thought about the language itself. What's the other factor?
It connects back to history again, specifically the legacy of wet rice farming.
Rice paddies. How does that connect to math?
Rice farming, the traditional kind in southern China or Japan, is incredibly demanding work. Way more than typical Western farming. We're talking maybe 3,000 hours a year per farmer. It's also complex, requires careful planning, coordination, skill, and crucially, there's a very clear link between effort and reward.
And the harder you work, the more rice you get.
Pretty much. Unlike, say, a European peasant farmer where weather or the landlord might be the bigger factor, in a rice paddy, meticulous, persistent effort directly translates to yield. This cultivated, over centuries, a powerful cultural belief in the value of persistence, of sheer hard work. There's an old proverb, no one who can rise before dawn 360 days a year fails to make his family rich.
Wow. That's some work ethic.
It's an ingrained cultural attitude towards effort, and that persistence, that willingness to stick with a difficult problem, that's incredibly valuable when learning math.
So it's the combination. A language that makes math intuitive, and a cultural belief that hard work on complex tasks pays off.
That seems to be a big part of the story, and you see these principles applied today, interestingly, in places like the KPP schools.
Knowledge is power program in places like the South Bronx.
Right. They serve mostly low-income, disadvantaged kids. But they have longer school days, classes on Saturdays, shorter summer breaks.
Why the longer hours?
It's partly about combating the summer slide, the learning loss that happens over long summer breaks, which disproportionately affects poorer kids who might not have access to enriching activities. By essentially extending the school year, giving kids more time on task, more focused practice, especially in math, KPP students start achieving at incredibly high levels, dramatically outperforming their peers.
It's like they're applying that rice paddy ethic of persistent effort.
Yeah.
Burrito's bargain, right?
Yeah.
Sacrificing free time now for a chance at a better future.
Exactly. It shows how structuring opportunity, providing that time and environment for focused effort, can make a huge difference, regardless of background.
So when you put all these pieces together, the hidden advantages of birth dates, the 10,000 hours needing opportunity, the limits of IQ, and the power of practical intelligence, these deep cultural and historical legacies, what's the big picture?
The big picture, I think, is that the traditional story of the outlier, the self-made genius who just emerges from nowhere, it's mostly a myth. Real success, the kind that reaches the very top, it looks much more like a gift, not purely earned, but received.
A gift, how so?
a gift of history, of community, a gift of opportunity, of legacy. It's this incredibly complex web of advantages, inheritances, some lucky, some maybe earned through the efforts of previous generations, but all absolutely critical.
So when we look at someone like Bill Gates,
We shouldn't just marvel at his individual brilliance or think, wow, wasn't it lucky that one kid got that computer access in 1968? That's kind of the wrong way to see it.
okay, so what's the right way? What's the provocative thought for us, for you listening?
Well, here it is. Imagine if back in 1968, it wasn't just one 13-year-old Bill Gates who got unlimited access to a time-sharing terminal. What if a million teenagers had been given that same opportunity?
A million Bill Gateses.
Well, maybe not exactly. But how many more innovators, creators, problem solvers would we have unleashed? How much more talent is out there just waiting for the right accident and birth, the right lucky break, the right cultural context, the right 10,000 hours of opportunity?
Mhm.
If we as societies could find ways to extend those lucky breaks and arbitrary advantages more broadly,
Mhm.
if we could consciously cultivate practical intelligence, address limiting cultural legacies, provide those crucial opportunities for practice.
How much richer, how much more amazing could our world be?
Exactly. So the real question maybe isn't just how did they succeed, it's what opportunities can we create for ourselves and maybe more importantly for others to unlock all that potential that's still waiting.